There you go. And we'll upload all of this to the daily bulletin along with the application link afterwards. So going forward, that link will be switched in the bulletin. So once again, thank you guys so much for being able to take time out of your days today to come to the NSC introductory meeting. So super exciting. Our application process opens, I guess the application opens today. And yeah, we're just going to go through a couple of things of what the application looks like and suggestions from us and the timeline of the application cycle this year. Minghui and I. So I have been in charge of NSCs previously, and Minghui will be taking it on after I graduate. So she will be working with me this year.
Yep. Now, first of all, just some key dates. Like Ashley said, applications open today and they'll close on October 11th, which is the Monday of fall break. And then after that, how it works is you just email your application to the ESC email, aegis@sas.edu.sg, and then we'll have meetings scheduled one-on-one with an officer.
So yeah, we will have that interview element, which we'll get into later. But throughout the process, throughout the 2 weeks when you are going through and writing your application, you have the chance to reach out to any one of the ESC officers and schedule a one-on-one meeting. So this is something that we highly recommend you doing just because we want to help you as much as possible during this application process. So if you reach out to any of the officers, we would be willing, before you submit your application, to go down with you one-on-one and kind of just talk through it, give you as many tips as we can. So I guess what is an NSC, and I guess how this differs from a service club, but essentially an NSC or a new service club is a club in its test stage. So as a council, we want to ensure that NSC's missions are feasible, memberships are sustainable, and the leadership is strong. So we will check in with NSCs on a bi-monthly basis or just as regularly as we need to in order to ensure that it's thriving and just assist with any roadblocks in the process. So they're like service clubs, but with a little bit more of ESC guidance and support behind them.
The process behind moving from after this testing period, you'll move on to be an official service club. And the process for moving that is, as an NSC, you have to maintain a green status, which is what you get when we review clubs. And you have to maintain that status anytime between a semester and 4 years. And until you guys are eligible, which is 2 years of greens, you'll remain as an NSC. And yeah.
So NSC privileges, these are pretty much every single privilege that a service club gets. So they're not necessarily unique to NSCs, but as an NSC, of course, you are welcome to all of the opportunities that a service club in our service community gets. So some of these are recognition on our website and portal, participation in club fairs and the service assembly, along with Global Village, all those large-scale service council events, participation in our monthly service council meetings. So they used to be monthly, but it really just depends on how often we need them. But essentially, that's around the time frame that we like to work around, and the ability to fundraise, be in contact with admin. And one thing that's super special is the ability to apply for service funds. We have a large budget, and a benefit of being a part of the service council is that you have access to this budget and you can apply for money anytime that you need to. Another thing is, just a lot of advertisement. We have our Instagram, bulletin, e-news, all that fun stuff. So you can always advertise and further your cause through that. So just a few things of what we look for in your application.
First, we'll be looking at your mission, whether it's feasible, viable, and scalable. Keep it short, keep it concise, and be very direct.
Yeah, so this is essentially what your club does, and there's going to be a 200 word 100 word limit on it this year because we want it to be as straight to the point as possible. So that is one of the questions on our NSC application. Another one that we stress the importance of is originality. So this one's really important to us, especially in this process. So basically, we want the club's mission and approach to be unique among the SAS service community. The club should tackle a completely new issue or address another more common issue in an ingenuitive manner. So essentially what this means is we already have many service clubs in our community. And we do have a club cap of 60 clubs. So the clubs that we are able to welcome into our community, we want them to be as original as possible. And we don't want there to be any overlap with any current clubs. So what we suggest in this is going ahead and looking at sassvc.com or our service portal just to go over and review all of the clubs that we already have in our community and just make sure that your proposed NSC has a mission that is completely unique and is not already covered in our current community.
We'll be also looking at officers and whether you guys are organized, you guys get along, there's teamwork and shared leadership. All of you should be knowledgeable on whatever cause you're trying to pursue, and they should all be able to answer questions when we have the one-on-one meetings. You guys should also have at least one officer who will be at SAS 2 years from now, from the application date, in order to ensure that going forward, there is someone to lead the club with knowledge behind it.
Sponsors. So this is one thing that's not necessarily required. However, we highly recommend it. The club should have a sponsor by the time of application. And this is just because the best way for all of you guys to be able to get your clubs and initiatives to have a sponsor is really by going around and asking teachers individually. We find that when students go up to teachers and ask, they have a lot more luck than when we as an ESC or as a council go around and contact teachers, seeing if any of them are free, because the reality is a lot of teachers, and I think almost all the teachers in our community, are currently sponsoring at least one thing. So for them to want to take on another thing, they have to also be pretty passionate about the cause, and they have to know that you are especially passionate. So having you go up to them, you will probably have a lot more luck. But if you are having a hard time doing this, it will not impact your application, and we will deal with it. If we do end up accepting you, we will help you find a sponsor afterwards, but we do suggest it.
One key highlights in our club applications is how you approach service. And clubs should have a clear understanding of the different types or the 4 pillars of service that we have here, which is direct, indirect, advocacy, and research. And ideally, you guys should engage in at least 2 for your cause and your club, and you guys should also provide examples as to how you guys will pursue this pillar and how you guys will serve, essentially.
To add in, it's not required as emphasized. And when we look in your application, for example, if you don't have plans for all 4 of these pillars, it's completely fine if it is matching with your mission and what you do. So for example, SCS-centric clubs, for example, EAA Help as an example, they mainly rely on direct service, and sometimes it's not needed to do indirect service, advocacy, or research. So we will see how you tailor these approaches to service in your application based on the mission that you have and the demographics you serve.
Yeah, you both put that perfectly. And this kind of ties in. Your club should already have a few events brainstormed, and you guys should have a clear plan for the future. So this kind of goes with the next slide. Ming-Hui, would you mind going forward? So in the application, we're going to ask for your 100-day plan. And this is actually adopted by the Stanford University club system as grant schooling. What used to be on ESC, super into this, so we have since adopted it. But it's a very good system. So it is essentially what your club plans to do to get off the ground within the first 100 days of running. So what we ask for in the application is for you to include details on events or initiatives that you plan on doing within the first 100 days post club approval. So we can provide examples per your request if you want to see what this looks like. But typically what service clubs have done in the past is they've laid out like a calendar, and they've had each of their weekly meetings, and for example, what they would cover at this meeting, what event they would plan to have by this next week, because we just want to make sure that if we are to accept you, then you have the ability, you've already brainstormed these activities, you already know when you want to conduct and carry out them, so that when you are able to gather this member base, that they're all able to have a role in your club and you're able to get off to a good start. And some considerations, just because we are in this time of COVID, just how you'll work around that. So I think that's another part that you may want to include in your 100-day plan. You shouldn't say that you're planning a service trip to, say, Bhutan in the next 100 days, because unfortunately, as great as that would be, it is not feasible. So working around those current restrictions is necessary.
And then there's also, as like your club, if you are going to work with an external organization, you will have to have proof of contact with the organization, proof of nonprofit status, because we are a nonprofit school if you want to fundraise, and whether the organization is valid or not. And this is saying, are they truly serving as they say they are?
Okay, so this is kind of just an outline of the two main stages of the NSC application process. So the first round, from when you submit your application until about a week or two from there, ESC will be looking at each application blind. So to prevent any bias, we will distribute application among members. Don't worry, you won't just have one set of eyes. We will all end up looking at each application, but we do divide it among our members for the first process. And then after we look at each of your applications, then we will set up interviews with each officer teams. So after we go through and make comments, what we want to ask each of you guys, we will take into account your names and meet with all of the club officers. So the main thing that we try to get out of this meeting is just really learning about your passion for service. And this is kind of where we want to connect to the personal thing. Everyone has an individual reason behind why they serve, and we're really looking for this when we do interview you. So this is another thing, is we will be asking this to all of your club members and club officers that attend the call. And we want to see that each of them are equally knowledgeable, equally invested, and just equally as passionate for the cause as the rest of you guys. So yeah, 2 stages. Stage 1, we look over them blindly, make comments, questions, and then we set up interviews with all of you guys. And this will happen in the weeks following when you submit your application.
And as you know, there are only limited spots for NSCs. So if you're not accepted, you can always apply next semester. And we'll be also giving you feedback on your NSC application on whatever you could work on. We're always open to having a meeting with you or discussing how you can improve your application. You just need to send us a quick email and we'll be here to help you.
Yeah, and then this is a question that we get a lot is how many clubs are you able to accept or how many do you plan on accepting? There is no number. Unfortunately, we cannot provide a number. We are just doing it based off of the quality of the applications that we do receive. We don't have a specific number that we're trying to fill. So we're just working around what we think our service community should see going forward and what we want to see as an addition to our service community. But thankfully, we do have a few spots this semester compared to last year when we were more tight on the cap. I do think could you go back to the service project slide? I believe it was it was pretty early on. Okay, slide number 6. Yeah. So do one of you guys want to go over this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Quinn, would you like to?
This is just whether when taking into account when you submit your NSC application, you have to consider whether this cause, this issue, this thing you want to pursue, whether it's better as a club where you have it over a long time, or a service project where it's time limited, goal oriented, student-led initiative that just alleviates one specific problem or something of that sort. And unlike a regular club, service projects will not need any active members. Ideally, it'll just be officers working in there, and you won't really need a sponsor or consistent or continuous meetings, since this will be like a one-off event.
So this is just something to keep in mind, like Minkwei said, when you are going through this application process. If you think that your service initiative may be more fit towards the service project definition, you can go ahead and look into that. And there's a lot more information about that on our website. And for that, applications are rolling and they are throughout the year. So that's just another thing. Yeah.
And yeah, we definitely highly encourage you to take the time before you even start thinking about applying as a club, just to reflect and see what mission you want to go ahead with and kind of see where your plans are. For example, if you have a hard time drafting a 100-day plan, for example, perhaps think about this as another avenue for you to still be able to conduct your service, and it's just in a different format.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is the end to our presentation today. I'm going to stop the recording and we will stop sharing our screen.